there, and welcome to Life After High School for students with disabilities, which we call post-secondary transition. I'm Catherine Kostelic with Hardin County Schools, and we're here to talk about Special Olympics and recreational opportunities for students with disabilities after high school. And we're talking to Diana Bennett. Welcome.
Hi.
Diana, can you start by giving us a little bit of information about your background and history with Special Olympics?
Okay. Well, I guess first of all, my official title, if you want to call it that, is Hardin County Special Ed Director or Coordinator. I kind of coordinate all of the Special Olympic events in Hardin County. And I got started in Special Olympics when I was teaching, and I was a special ed teacher for 35 years in Hardin County, but I got started when I was working in a self-contained school for students with disabilities, and I was teaching PE, and I felt like we needed something to work toward or work for. So I started researching and found Special Olympics, and that was our goal. So the very first time that we participated was in the spring of 1979.
Okay.
Quite a while back, yes. So that was basically how I got started, and then our program evolved from that time.
Okay. Special Olympics has been, I guess, in Hardin County longer than I even realized. Can you give us a little bit of background on Special Olympics in general and the program nationwide?
Okay. Well, and it is an international program,
okay.
Actually, yes. It was started by the Kennedy Foundation.
Okay.
And actually, Special Olympics just had a 50th anniversary this past summer. It was started in 1968, in Chicago by Eunice Kennedy Shriver. So the very first one was done in Soldier Field, Chicago in the summer of 1968. And it has grown to an international program. They do international games, just like the regular Olympics, every 2 years for winter sports, every 4 years. So on a 2-year cycle, they do winter sports, and on the next 2-year cycle, they do summer sports.
Okay.
And so it's been around now, like I said, for 50 years, quite a while.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yes.
For students and adults locally, what sports can they participate in if they want to get involved with Special Olympics?
In Hardin County, we are a year-round program.
Okay.
We currently have basketball and cheerleading going.
Okay.
And then in the spring, we will do track and field.
Okay.
That usually starts March and April,
Okay.
and then it finishes in June. And then in late June, early July, they'll start softball.
Okay.
And after softball season, there's flag football.
Okay.
And then after football, there's bowling.
Okay.
So there's quite a lot that we do. There are many other opportunities that we don't do in Hardin County, but that are available within the region. Like if you want to travel to Louisville, there's some swimming that's available.
Okay.
There's some, I'm trying to think what else. I know they do swimming. We've had a couple of individuals who have done equestrian and a couple who have done golf.
Okay.
So there are quite a few opportunities around.
That's a lot of different options.
A lot of different options, yes.
Is there a difference between like seasonal ones and then ones that are year-round? The ones that you mentioned, are they all seasonal, or are some of them kind of a 12 calendar schedule?
Well, there's not any single sport that goes 12 months.
Okay.
So the sports try to run seasonal with their normal or regular counterpart.
Okay.
Just like right now, basketball season. This is basketball. Cheerleading goes right along with basketball.
Okay.
So they try to run them about the same time as regular sports would run.
Okay. And just like other students who are, potentially 3 or 4 sport athletes, is that the same for individuals participating with Special Olympics? They can do multiple sports throughout the year?
Yes, they can. And many of our athletes do multiple sports. And that's why, even though like in basketball, for example, and bowling, our bowling season starts at the end of August and runs through the first part of December. Basketball starts practicing usually in October or early November. So there's a little overlap on sports, but we try not to conflict with practice dates so that you're not having to choose, so to speak.
That's good. Okay.
So yes.
What about age requirements? Can any age participate in any of the sports, or are there limitations on that?
The limitations are set by Special Olympics International.
Okay.
And the age requirements are an athlete must be 8
Okay.
by the date of the regional competition that they're participating in.
Okay.
So like if they're doing, like for instance, right now they're doing they're doing basketball.
Okay.
The regional tournament is actually one of the regional tournaments is actually this weekend in Hardin
Okay.
County.
Okay.
There's 3 or 4 across the state, and we're hosting one in Hardin County. To do basketball, they had to have been 8 by the date of this weekend.
Okay.
And as far as the upper age, there is no limit.
Okay.
There are age divisions.
Okay.
When athletes are competing in things, they are competing by age and ability. So there's 2 different qualifying divisions, if you want to, not qualifying, but divisions to compete in. So you're in there by age groups and then by ability, like for instance in basketball.
Okay.
The basketball has 4 different levels of ability.
Okay.
So there's like A, B, or A, 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A. And that's all based upon ability, because someone who can barely get the ball down the court isn't going to play on the same team as someone who might be able to run down the floor and dunk.
Okay.
They're not going to be in the same divisions. So they try to make the competition as fair as it can be, but yet as challenging as each athlete. We want it to be challenging, but not so difficult they don't want to be there.
Yeah. Sounds like a good balance.
We try. We try.
What about like the sort of regional or national structure? Because I heard you mention like regional things and then different tournaments. So how does that work if you were on basketball, say, in Hardin County?
For instance, in basketball, we have teams local.
Okay.
Our local teams. They play, we try to schedule games with other teams around.
Okay.
And then we also play in a league in Louisville.
Okay.
Because that's the closest to us. There are leagues I think there are leagues also in Lexington and in Bowling Green. And so you try to play that you can get there and get back on because most of the league competition is done on a weeknight.
Okay.
So you try to get back, back and forth at a decent time. And then there is a regional competition.
Okay.
And at that regional competition, in basketball, not in all sports, whether you win or lose in your regional competition determines whether or not you go on to state.
Okay.
Now, in a lot of the individual sports, that's not necessarily the case.
Okay.
Like, say, softball and bowling and track and field, those are done more individually.
Okay.
And so how you place in regional competition does not necessarily determine whether you go on to state competition.
Okay.
And then when it comes to, we actually have national games and international games. Those are done by a nomination form from the local area.
Okay.
And then the state has a committee who looks over all the nominations and determines who gets selected to go to national and internationals. And we had an athlete who just went to nationals this past summer in bowling.
Okay. How did the individual do? Did they have a great time, I'm sure?
Oh, she had a great time. She had a great time. And she actually, if I recall correctly, I think she won 3 gold medals and one bronze, maybe?
That's
awesome. No, I'm sorry. I think she took 4th in the other one.
Okay.
But I know she came home with several medals. She was
awesome.
very, very proud of herself.
Okay.
And we have had athletes from Hardin County who have also participated in international games.
Oh, wow.
We've had athletes that have gone to Ireland, and we've had an athlete that went to Japan. So we have athletes who have participated on the national and international level.
It's a much bigger structure than I even realized. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So we talked about the age requirements. What about cost? Are there entrance fees for each sport? What about other fees associated with the materials and travel, that kind of stuff?
Okay. Well, that's
probably a lot.
It's tricky. We have a booster club that does some fundraising, and we have several organizations, like civic organizations, who help raise money for us and that kind of thing. There is, at the moment, as long as our booster club is making money and raising money, we try not to have any direct costs to the individual. They do have to have a physical every 3 years, and they do pay for the cost of that. But as far as uniform cost, material, equipment, different kinds of things for the different sports.
Okay.
The Booster Club purchases all of that at this point in time.
That's wonderful. Okay.
We pay regional fees and state fees when we go to regional and state competitions. At this point, our Booster Club also pays those fees.
Okay.
However, if we don't have money, we'll have to look at that,
Gotcha.
as it comes along.
Okay.
So we try not to make cost ever a factor.
That's wonderful.
Now, in our bowling league, we bow in a league every week.
Okay.
Now, the athletes do pay the bowling fees to the bowling alley.
Okay.
Because
okay.
that pays
For
to
the
the bowling
rental.
alley.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. But I mean, he gives us a very good
Okay.
price on that, weekly cost kind of thing. And then when we do the competitions, like I said, our
Yeah.
Booster Club picks up the cost for that. And we have parents who will sponsor other athletes and different
Okay.
kinds of things.
Okay.
So it works out pretty well.
Yeah, as accessible as it can be.
It can
sounds
be,
like.
but I
Okay.
mean, it gets to be fairly expensive. The fees are not that much. Like, for instance, when we go to bowling, for example, we did that back in December. When we do regional competition, it's $5 a person. Well, that doesn't sound like a whole lot, but we send 90-some people.
Oh, wow. So you're adding that up.
Well, we
yeah.
send 90-some athletes, and then we also have what's called unified competition. So on the regional and state games, on bowling, for example, there is what's called unified games.
Okay.
So like I bow with one of the athletes, and
Okay.
I'm a unified partner.
Okay.
We also pay those bowling fees for the unified partner.
Okay.
And we had about 40 unified teams.
Okay.
So we were paying fees for that too. So that's why I said,
Okay.
$5 a person isn't a big deal.
Yeah.
But when you're paying 130 people,
Yeah.
it becomes a big deal.
Okay.
And then when we go to state, it goes to like $15 a person,
Okay.
which still isn't a major cost. But
Yeah.
when you're looking at 130 people,
Yeah.
it becomes a major cost.
Okay.
And then we did do new shirts this year
Okay.
for our uniform shirts. We did new shirts this year. We don't do them every year. We do them about every 5 or 6 years
Okay.
to try to hold those costs down.
Gotcha.
And the same thing with most of our team sports, basketball, cheerleading, those kinds of things.
Okay.
We try to make uniforms last 4 or 5 years.
Okay.
And so we do have to replace every now and then.
Gotcha.
But those costs we pick up at this point. So.
What about travel for athletes or families if you're going to the state competition or something like that? Like the travel fees and hotels if needed. Is that their responsibility, or do y'all help cover some of that?
We really don't do a whole lot of travel where we're staying overnight.
Okay.
Other than track and field, summer
Okay.
games. And that is at one of the universities. Usually
Okay.
the last, I don't know, 20 years or so, it's been at Eastern Kentucky University.
Okay.
And we pay a registration fee that covers the cost of that.
Understand. Okay.
So it's like $55 or $60 a person, and that covers the whole weekend.
Gotcha.
Up until this past year, we did transport to summer games. We would contract with a bus company and provide a bus. We aren't doing that anymore. The cost is just so prohibitive for the number that we are providing, because a lot of our parents go as chaperones and
Okay.
stuff. And so it's kind of like we might go down with 15 individuals on the bus and we've got 10 parents coming. There's not a lot of point in paying a $2,000 fee for a bus
Understand.
when they're going to be coming later.
Okay.
So we dropped that part. We don't
Okay.
do that part anymore. And so all of the transportation is up to the parents. But to regional competitions, but most of our regional competitions are like Louisville. We have, I guess all of our regional competitions are in Louisville. So it's not like they're driving a whole lot of distance. And we do have some individuals whose parents don't go a lot,
Okay.
but we have a lot of parents who are more than willing to do some carpooling. And so
Gotcha.
we try to make transportation not an issue either.
Okay. Great. What about the time commitment? If you want to sign up for basketball, for example, what would be the time commitment
As
for
an athlete or as a coach?
Well,
Actually, it's both.
we'll say athlete.
Okay.
The steps of an athlete. What are they committing to as far as practices and games and that kind of stuff?
Okay. With most of the team sports, and basketball is probably the largest time commitment
Okay.
as far as time.
Okay.
They do a practice one night a week.
Okay.
And they start in November.
Okay.
So most of our athletes are still doing bowling.
Okay.
So they have one night a week for bowling, and then they have one night a week for basketball.
Okay.
After the bowling season is over, then they pick up in January. They practice one night a week. They have a league one night a week. And then about every second or third weekend, they will have a tournament on a Saturday or something.
Okay.
So it's 2 to 3
Okay.
days, nights, ever how you want to look at
Okay.
that, a week from January until mid-March.
Okay, okay. So you said basketball is the biggest time commitment. So is it fair to say typically it's maybe a practice a week and then a game or something on the weekends?
With a lot.
Okay.
Softball has some of the same commitments as basketball, but their season isn't quite as long.
Okay.
Bowling, we do a 12-week bowling league, so that's like every Tuesday night for like 12 weeks, and there is one regional competition and one state competition.
Okay.
So that's like one, but now our state and regional competitions, they can participate both on the Saturday and the Sunday.
Okay.
So if they do singles, they do that on Saturday, and if they do the unified, like I talked about before,
Yes.
that would be on the Sunday of the regional and state competitions.
Okay.
So that's not, it's a once-a-week commitment.
Okay.
And then the 2 weekends.
Okay.
And track and field, we practice about 8 times before we do the competition.
Okay.
And then we have a one-day Saturday competition, a regional competition, and then the weekend competition.
Okay.
So.
Okay. So we talked a little bit about the travel and those commitments as far as the competitions and that kind of stuff. What about peer involvement? Siblings who want to get involved, or just other peers in the community who want to volunteer? How does that work?
Well, it's a little, I'm not exactly sure how to answer that. Some of the sports do the unified.
Okay.
Like I said, in bowling, they cannot bowl with them in the league simply
Okay.
because we don't have enough space.
Okay.
But as far as the competitions, we definitely encourage unified on that.
Okay. Okay.
Some of the team sports offer unified teams.
Okay.
So like you would have 3 Special Olympic athletes and 2 non-Special Olympic
Okay.
athletes on a team.
Okay.
We don't have a lot of individuals who are willing to make those commitments on those team sports.
Okay.
And we don't have a lot of other unified teams to play.
Okay.
So it kind of makes
Limits it a little
Yeah,
bit.
it does.
Okay.
It makes it a little tough to do.
Okay.
As far as volunteering to help with run different events and stuff like that, always encouraging that. And I
Okay.
know like basketball, we have a lot of siblings
Okay.
who come and practice with the athletes. They help
Okay.
coach, they help,
Okay.
so the hands-on kind of stuff is very much
Okay.
there, especially in those team sports, to help.
Okay. And sort of you mentioning coaches and siblings kind of leads into the next thing I wanted to talk about, supervision, especially for those younger kids. How does that work if your 9-year-old is on a basketball team? How many coaches are there? What's the adult supervision look like?
Well, everything that we do is open.
Okay.
So parents are there.
Okay.
They can be involved if they want to be.
Okay.
Most of them are in the stands. If they need help on the floor, it's not unusual for a coach to say, come down here and do
Okay.
this kind of thing. So, but all of the volunteers that work with Special Olympics have to go through a volunteer screening process through the state.
Okay.
That's a requirement, and that has to be done every 3 years too.
Okay.
So
What is involved in that screening process? Is it
It's
like a
really-
background check type of thing for other?
We fill out a
volunteers?
form
Okay.
that goes to the state, and then the state does, a background check that goes through the court system.
Okay.
For example, I know we have some volunteers who are cleared to volunteer in any way, but maybe they can't transport athletes because
Okay.
they've had some kind of a driving violation.
Okay.
So they do get back
Okay.
to you and let you know.
Okay.
So, because I know I've done it, I've been involved for 40 years, and we didn't start the volunteer screening process probably until after I'd been involved maybe 15 years or
Okay.
so.
Okay.
But it's been around for a long time. And I got a speeding ticket years ago, and it still shows up on my thing.
It never goes away.
No.
Okay.
But I get a letter, saying this is what showed up, kind of
Okay.
thing. And it wasn't a violation that prohibited me from
Yeah.
taking individual, but it was
Okay.
still, when they do that record check,
Okay.
that still pops up on there.
Okay.
So.
what about, because you mentioned parents are welcome at the practices and the games and oftentimes help. What if it's kind of the flip side, a parent who's kind of busy and they're not able to always go to the events and especially the regional competitions and stuff? Is that okay for students to sort of travel with the coach?
As long
athletes,
as the parents have worked it out with the coach. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's not just a thing of dropping them off, that they have to work that out among themselves to get them there. But yes,
it is flexible for parents.
It is very
who
flexible.
Have different schedules.
And a lot of our athletes in this area have been together a long time. And they look out after one another. They help one another. They, they really are good about knowing what an individual needs, and they know, and it's evolved over the years. When the level of supervision, it's not really supervision, I don't guess, because we have a lot of athletes who are adults and who live on their own and different kinds of things, or they live in some kind of a semi-supervised setting, but they can be fairly independent. They have jobs and that kind of thing. And so they have developed a level of trust with us, and they know what that level of trust is too. And so I would say we have a very good level of supervision with our athletes.
Well, it sounds like you guys just have a phenomenal network built up.
It's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun.
What are just the overall benefits of participating for an athlete?
Well, number one is just to be able to participate in sports. Well, and I think I've mentioned our athletes have developed that bond among themselves. I mean, and they really have a real social grouping going of people they like to do things with. I mean, because it's amazing. I'll see pictures on Facebook. So-and-so had like a birthday party, and it's amazing how many of their Special Olympic friends have come to that, or just different kinds of things. So that social network that they create, because many times once our special needs, our people with disabilities are in school, we do a whole lot to try to create those relationships. But once they get out of school, those normal peers have full-time jobs, they get married, they have kids, their life changes. A lot of our individuals with disabilities, some of that doesn't happen. And so those social groupings do change. And this is a group that they can keep consistent with and do things with, and they still pull in their other peers to do things. But we tend to gravitate toward people who are more similar to us. And especially as we age, I think those discrepancies stand out more. And so there is a real natural group there. And a real side benefit to that is the networking for the parents or the caregivers, because there is a huge networking going on, and we see a lot of times a parent has gone somewhere for the weekend and their child, even though they're not a child, their adult has stayed with another athlete in their family over the weekend. So I mean, there's a ton of networking going on. Or parents who have gone through a medical issue or a legal issue, guardianship or whatever, they can talk to other parents who have gone through those same things. And so there's just a lot of networking, a lot of socializing that comes through that.
It's nice to see those support groups form. It sounds like for everyone involved with the athletes, parents, caregivers, siblings, coaches. If athletes or families are interested in participating either in a sport or volunteering, how can they get signed up for that here in Hardin County?
The best way is to contact me either through telephone or through email. And I do not coach all of the sports. I basically
can't do it all.
No, I gave up that long time ago. I basically am the head of like the basketball, not basketball, of bowling and track and field, but then we have other coaches who are over the other sports. But the best way is to get to me, and then if you're just interested in one sport, I can put you in touch with who that coach might be, or whatever you might be interested in. I can network you out to where you need to go.
Perfect.
As both volunteer and an athlete.
Perfect. Is there if people are just Googling for information, is there like a state website related to Special Olympics
There
or a
is.
local website that people can look at?
Yes, if you go, it's called soky.org.
Okay.
But if you just Google Kentucky Special Olympics,
Okay.
it'll take you to
Okay.
the Special Olympics website, and there's
Okay.
a lot of information on there.
Perfect.
Goes through a lot of the history, a lot of the events.
Okay.
And there's a link on there too to connect you with someone in each county.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
So, I mean, because I've gotten phone calls, and it's like, well, I saw your name on the website. And it's like, so my contact information
Okay.
is also on the state website.
Okay.
We do also have a local Facebook page.
Okay.
But it is kind of an invitation-only kind of page.
Gotcha.
It's like
Okay.
you kind of have to be involved in the program, and then we post,
Okay.
then you become on that page.
Okay. So once they contacted you and got working on that, then individuals could be added to that
Yes,
Facebook page
yes.
to network from there
Yes,
with the other
because
people
that's
involved.
usually where, like, the coaches will post practices,
Okay.
or if the weather's been bad and they're canceling, it's all going to show on that Facebook
Gotcha.
page.
Okay.
And which is also kind of why we don't really want that open to
Yeah.
anybody. It is a little more specific to what's going
Gotcha.
on at the moment.
Understand. Is it the same process for a individual who wants to volunteer?
Yes.
Or, okay, contact you first.
Yeah,
Okay.
they could contact me, or they could just call directly to the state office.
Okay.
Because they can download the forms. There is a volunteer form, and they can download that form from that Special Olympics Kentucky webpage.
Okay.
So that would start the process. Because if they come to me, the first thing I'm going to do is either send you that page,
Okay.
or I'm going to put you on that website and tell you to get that
Okay.
that volunteer form and have it filled out. You do not have to have that form filled out and get information back before you start volunteer.
Okay.
You're kind of on a pending status until that comes back. It's kind of like we assume you're okay
Okay.
until you're not.
We know otherwise. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
But usually that process, for once you fill out the application to getting it back, it usually takes a month or so because they have to do the court check.
Okay.
And then you put 2 references on there.
Okay.
And they do get back to those references, and if they don't hear back from them, it's kind of like you just almost start the process over
Okay.
again.
Okay. Well, I mean, I appreciate you sharing all this
You're
information.
welcome.
It just sounds like a much bigger program than even I realized, and I'm sure a lot of other people realized, especially for that networking and support piece
Yes.
for students after high school. And it's
Yes.
hard for anyone when they leave high school to
agree.
sort of make those new connections. So
I
it sounds
agree.
like a great
And the program
opportunity.
has changed a lot over the years, just in the fact that when we first started Special Olympics, there wasn't a lot, even like when I started it in Hardin County all those years ago, there wasn't a lot for students with disabilities, even in the school system, to participate sports-wise
Right.
with their peers and stuff.
Yep.
And the qualifications in special ed were also different than they are now. And so then, when we first started, we were pretty much a school-based program.
Okay.
And then over the years, we evolved and we grew, and we are predominantly now, I would say, an adult program.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Predominantly.
Okay.
We still have individuals in the school, but not as many. And I think a lot of that, like I said, is because the need doesn't really come about because there are things in school for them to
Yep.
do. And we encourage that,
Yeah.
do that while you're there. You know,
Yeah.
not to say you couldn't do both. We welcome you to do
Yeah.
both. But we've also had athletes who, because of their involvement, like in Special Olympics, you know, they have bowling in the schools now, in the high schools
Yeah.
now. We have 4 of our Special Olympic athletes who, maybe 4 or 5. I know we have 1 who is currently in school, and she's on our high school bowling team.
Oh, wow.
We've had 3 others who have been on their
Okay.
high school bowling team.
That's awesome.
But because of their confidence,
Yep.
they were able to try out for their high school teams.
That's wonderful.
You know, so yes, it is. And like sometimes those, well, like the young lady that was on our high school team this year, she didn't do Special Olympics bowling because the times conflict. They were like, you go do your
Yep.
school, but then she competed in tournaments with us.
That's awesome.
So
you find a good
there-
balance, it sounds
we try,
like.
yes, yes. But like I said, the need happens, we think, now more once they're out of school because there is less opportunity than there
Absolutely.
were while they were in school.
Which makes sense. It's
It does.
common for a lot of people,
Yes,
not
yes.
just students or individuals with disabilities.
Yes,
too.
that is very true.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, again, thank you so much.
You're
This was
welcome.
great to hear about the program and just all the opportunities available locally for athletes. That is everything that we're going to talk about today. Thank you so much.